Welcome back. Train operator SBS Transit says its engineers and those from the Land Transport Authority will be working overnight to restore power supply to the North East Line depot substation. That is after a power fault led to disruptions earlier today across several stops along the North East Line, plus the entire Sengkang-Punggol LRT service. Rachel Teng with more from Punggol Station.
As you can see behind me, the crowd has eased up much more. There are no snaking queues and everyone is moving along in an orderly fashion. I was here earlier today and the situation was much more chaotic. At the bus interchange over on my left side, there were a lot of queues and long queues. People were queuing up for the bridging buses because the LRT lines were completely down. But now the LRT lines are basically up and running. It's just that each of them are only running in one direction. And from what I hear from the LTA officers that I spoke to on the platform earlier, they said that that's likely to be the case for the rest of the night. And this is a precautionary measure because they want to ensure that the lines don't get overloaded, and that's because the engineers at the SBS Transit found that the disruptions earlier were caused by a power trip at the depot's substation. This affected both the main and backup power supplies, and the engineers also are working hard to make sure that this does not affect the other stations that are running as per normal on the North East Line. And LTA is also involved. The Land Transport Authority says that they will investigate the cause of the power fault, and that a total of 350 staff from both sides were deployed today on top of regular staff to ensure that crowds are managed smoothly and everybody goes where they need to go after a long day of work or school or commute. SBS also says its engineers will work overnight to restore power supply so that hopefully full service will be resumed and up and running by tomorrow's morning rush hour. So we'll just have to wait and see if that's the case.
And CNE went out to 3 affected stations today. Here's more from Rachel.
This was the situation over at Serangoon MRT station earlier today. Commuters asking for reroute options and snaking queues during the peak lunch hour crowd. 11 stops along the North East Line were affected by a power fault at about 11 a.m. This was between Farrer Park and Punggol Coast stations. Services resumed about 3 hours later. All 4 loops on the Sengkang-Punggol LRT lines were also affected. Services progressively resumed later, starting around 3:30 p.m. Some commuters at the Serangoon station were happy with the way disruptions were handled.
It was quite crowded, but the guides were very helpful and they were good in organising.
I didn't know that there was actually a free bridging bus. I just arrived at Serangoon and there were I think 2 or 3 buses I saw. Yeah, but not crowded at all and not chaotic at all.
Others over at Sengkang MRT station said their plans were delayed by up to an hour.
They were telling me the MRT got no power. So they don't know when it will be ready. You see the queue all waiting for buses. And I went to the taxi stand, the same thing.
Apparently, we're brought here to Sengkang, and then now Sengkang to Harbourfront don't have any train. So it's very, very frustrating. 1 hour plus delayed, very late for my work.
Group CEO of SBS Transit, Jeffrey Sim, has apologized for the inconvenience caused. He said that the transport operator takes this matter very seriously and is looking into the cause of the incident.
This is the 5th train disruption since July. On the 1st of July, the Thomson East Coast Line was affected. 2 days later, and again on 19th of July, the Bukit Panjang LRT suffered disruptions. Last week, on 6th of August, services on the East-West Line were restored after 5 hours. A track fault had occurred during morning peak hour near Jurong East MRT station. Acting Transport Minister Jeffrey Xiao then described those rail disruptions as disappointing.